Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Welcome to Just Breathe, a podcast for those involved in the world of Unitarian Universalist religious education, or for anyone who just likes to talk about Unitarian Universalism. I am Ember Oak Kelly. I use any pronouns, and I am your host for Just Breathe. I am a white, gender-expansive person with glasses and shoulder-length brown hair that is currently back in a ponytail. I am wearing a black track jacket zipped up. My background is a visual representing our Journeys of Deeper Joy curriculum, and it has the appearance of a brown wooden table with the community building map of Deeper Joy, a lore keeper journal, and some dice. We do visual descriptions because this is both an audio and a YouTube podcast, and we want to practice inclusivity. In this episode, I am so excited to be joined by Shannon Harper and Jocelyn to explore how we can foster communities and groups where people feel safe to bond. Guests, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about who you are, your pronouns, a visual description, and your relationship with Unitarian Universalism. Shannon, could you go first for us?
Sure. Thanks, Ember. My name is Shannon Harper. My pronouns are she, her. I am a light-skinned, light brown person, multiracial. I have black curly hair with bangs, and most of it is swept up in the back. I am wearing a mint green sweater, and I am wearing what I consider to be my cutest holiday earrings, which are my gnome earrings. And I like a strong lip, so I have a bright red lipstick on. I am fortunate enough to serve your Unitarian Universalist Association as the co-director of Lifespan Faith Engagement, and I get to work a lot with young people, which is probably how I ended up really thinking about community building and bonding and such. So yeah, that's me.
I am Jocelyn. I go by she, her pronouns. I have red hair, fair as fair skin because it's December. I'm wearing a white Gorilla Sunday shirt, which I found out was a regional UU event with gorillas drumming and drums that have a chalice on it. And my background is a basic tan wall with a pink chest and a painting on top of it. And my role in the UU community is I just was hired on at UBarU to be their media and marketing director, and I'm also an associate director over events and things there.
I'm so excited to have both of you and for our insights that we're going to be diving into, and we're going to get to know our guests a little bit better with some of our upcoming questions as well. This season, we're guided by the framework of the community building map of Deeper Joy, as well as the framework of Whole Church Religious Education. You can check out our episode links to dive deeper into what those are. But today we are specifically stepping into Bonding Harbor. Well, maybe we're sailing into Bonding Harbor. I think would maybe make more sense for being more literal. And this is the place on the Deeper Joy map where we begin to come together as a group. It's that moment, where we're learning names, we're getting a sense of group energy, and we're maybe like doing things together, shared tasks, coffee hour, as the holy UU space that it is, and even sometimes play, fun activities. And we're beginning that building of trustworthiness that makes community possible. And it's where we learn what we're doing, what we can do together. So to get to know our guest on a more personal level, what do you think, if you think back to times in UU community that you've entered a new group, or it can be in other areas of your life, what has helped you feel connected to others early on that helped that experience feel more like a bonding experience?
So my brain keeps going to this isn't universal, but the retreat that we went on in August, and we all had to meet up in the Boston airport. The Boston airport is terrifying. It is so hard to find people and navigate. And so when we all had to connect and find each other in this area and be like, okay, do you see this sign? No, but I saw that one before I got there. And just literally getting to a shared location was really bonding, and navigating through that in August. And because Shannon was on that podcast that retreat, that really made me just think about that. There's a lot of activities I enjoy too, but for some reason my brain just kept coming to navigating the Boston airport.
I love that, Jocelyn, because I mean, I think that's the thing, is like having a challenge, having something that you're focusing on where you don't have to focus on the I'm nervous, I feel awkward, I don't know who these people are, like all of those things. It gives your brain something else to do. And it's like when we're all working together to accomplish that thing. I mean, that also gets into the stretching river, but I guess there's a reason why the bonding harbor is connected to the stretching river, not to, like get ahead of ourselves, right, Ember? But yeah, I love that. What I was gonna say was that I was gonna tell a story about Midwest Leadership School, which is this wonderful leadership school that used to happen in Mid-America region, and there were two tracks. There was an adult track and a youth track that happened simultaneously. But and I was been staff at the youth track for several. I was staff at the youth track for several years, and we would always do this activity in the beginning, which was like a name game. Everybody like these name games, like, and like name games, like they're first of all to learn names, which is super important. But also it's just like they're fun and they make us laugh and they break down these like kind of walls and barriers. And so we would always do this name game, and the name game was like, you say your name and then you say something that you do. Like, so I'm Shannon and I'm an artist, right? And you have to repeat it. And so like, and then there's like a challenge at the end, like, can you name everybody's name and what they do and all of that? And like, sometimes I've like, gone so far as to make like little figurines for them at the end of the week that has like them doing their thing, because we remember and it helps us associate. And so I think anytime that I can like laugh, and like not be laughing at me, but like laughing in general in a group, really helps me break down those nervousness that I get from in the beginning of a gathering.
So what I'm hearing is that if we're wanting to create bonding, we need to make people play name games inside of an airport. Like, I'm working on my strategies for like some of the future activities that I'm planning with people that I meet. I'm gonna, that's what I'm gonna start making friends in the airport. Like there's my new strategy for life.
Hey, but you know what? No, wait. So also, like, I don't know, have you ever like happened upon a group of like maybe like a Christian missionary group or whatever, and they're all holding hands praying in the airport, right? I mean, like that's a bond. Like that's like saying, hey, we're together and we're one, and people can see us and they know that we are, like we're these Christian missionaries, like wearing t-shirts that are all the same. Like airports, I love that. Airports are such a great place for groups to have to like do that kind of bonding.
Right. Observing behavior and seeing all that sort of. I do love some good people watching at an airport. But as someone who grew up evangelical, I definitely know what you mean about there's some of those rituals that really help increase that group identity. Okay, so I'm going to pivot us away from the airports and back to the map. And in the spirit of our recently released Journeys of Deeper Joy role-playing game, we're gonna role play into this topic a little bit. So we've sailed into the harbor on our ship, and we're a brand new group that doesn't know each other at all. It's the harbor of the airport. Maybe we release a second map with the bonding airport. But we've landed here, and this is kind of a fantasy world. So each of us brings an activity that's kind of imbued with some magic that's going to help this new group connect by doing something together. What would you do to help this group bond? What is your magical activity?
Okay, I would bring a stack of name tags and an assortment of magic markers. And when I say magic markers, I mean magic markers, okay? And lots of fun stickers with lots of like kitties and dragons and I don't know, all the things people like. Because I think that name tags are like one of the most easiest inclusive, accessible activities that we can do in any gathering. There's a book that I love that's called like the 2 hour cocktail party. And in it, he like, gives you this formula for like creating a very short event that's like simple, networking kind of event. But he says he requires name tags. He actually like people walk in, the host writes their name on a name tag and hands it to them. Like, don't even trust them to put the name, like gives it to them and says it's a requirement. And that he says, and I'm sorry, I'll have to remember the name of the author in a moment, but he says that really helps people. Like for me, I have a terrible memory. And one of the reasons I avoid coffee hour at church sometimes is when I would be afraid that people were going to talk to me and they were going to know me and I wasn't going to know them or I wasn't going to know their name. So having that name tag just makes me feel so much better. Me having the name tag so that they can identify me as well. And so the magical part about it, I think, is that like what's really great about name tags is that you can also put things on them that kind of like tell people a little bit about yourself. Like you can make it an icebreaker in and of itself, right? So like, you the name, but then like everybody has to answer some silly icebreaker question. Like if you were a cat, what would your name be? That kind of thing. And so I think that if they're magical and the markers are magical, then it can change like as needed, right? So like it will display on the name tag like whatever little quip or thing that you're going to do. And name tags are super important for pronouns, right? So giving that opportunity for people to just put it right there on their name tag, what their pronouns are, really brings down a lot of anxiety for people. Yeah.
I would bring a mood bandana of some sort, like a mood ring but a bandana, but it's like actually works, not just on the heat of your body. And then the paisley design would be something that identifies with the person, and so people would literally be wearing their emotions on their sleeve of some sort, so it would make navigating problems and things hopefully easier.
I'm fascinated how both of these are, things that they help you be able to express yourself more clearly with those around you, whether that's being able to like easily share your name, easily be able to kind of like let people know how you're feeling, how you're doing. I really really love both of these, and thanks for role playing with me, having a little bit of fun. But now let's get serious. That's my new catchphrase, folks. Let's get serious. As we talk about play and fun and how we bond with each other. So bonding Harbor is about, the games, the shared task, creative activities, rituals that spark connection. And there's something special about that. What is it about doing something side by side in a group that helps groups begin to bond?
Jocelyn, I would love to hear about camp and what kinds of activities and that you're doing in camp because I'm thinking about the Deeper Joy map and like how the bonding harbor is in a place in the map where it's accessible, right? It's where it's like this is where we enter into. And like there are some places where we have control over that and there are some places where we don't. But I'm thinking like when you're welcoming campers at U Bar U, you probably have this really intentional way that you are making sure that they're feeling welcome.
So for the first couple hours that they're there, it's just games. It's meet your friends, see people or you didn't, and connect in that way. They'll do all my friends and neighbors is a big one where it's a lot kind of like musical chairs a little bit where if you identify with whatever they say, like I would say all my friends and neighbors with red hair, everybody with red hair would have to get up. And, you can also go deeper than that. Like everybody who has a dog, I guess that's not deeper, but to 8-year-olds it is. And so that's what we do initially. But I think what really, to me, is where the definitive change is covenant building. And it's really bare bones camp to me, but watching kids and people sit and just talk about how they want to ideally interact in a space is not something that I do in any other form of my life ever. And so I find that really breaks down like, oh, I can say what I want, and we can talk about that and see if that works for the whole group. And I find that really is where I notice a change in connection.
I love that you brought in the covenant and the covenant lighthouse and in the map design, that covenant lighthouse, it's the point is that it's a beacon. It's a light that shines on all of the other spaces, right? So it's not even, you don't even have to visit the covenant lighthouse to feel the impact of the fact that a congregation or a group or a camp or a gathering has the covenant and uses it, right? You feel it in the bonding harbor. You feel it in the forest of affirmation. I love that. And I think that that's also a piece of it is making people feel comfortable is part of it is, as Ember would say, boundaries, right? Knowing what your boundaries are, knowing what's accepted here, knowing what you can do and what you shouldn't be doing. Because as somebody who I watch when I go into a gathering, I look, I see who's here. Do people look like me? Do people seem like they're, dressed like me and all of that. And so that having a covenant, having behavioral agreements, having clear signs on the walls that say what is allowed here and what is not accepted here is super important. Yeah.
Been having some really great conversations recently that really loop into what you both are saying here with covenant. And I mean, it's also something I've been thinking about for a while. When communities just become the ritual side, that like, oh, I'm showing up because it's what generations of my family have done, is like, we go to church on Sunday, and so we got to be there. And then it becomes tradition, rituals, the things we do can be so meaningful and have these rich histories, but they can also just become meaningless if we're not having that covenant, if we're not having that group formation, if there's not a reason. One of the conversation I've been having so much recently is kind of thinking about, like, why is it that we're meeting as a congregation? Why is it that we're meeting as a youth group? What is our goals in doing this? Why are we existing? Not just because we did it before, but like, what is it that we want out of this? Like, these are the questions that, as we're bonding as a group, that especially like a bigger group, if we're talking about like a congregation or a larger organization, these are the things that are really important for good group formation, is naming those specifics of our expectations, the covenant, how we're going to relate to each other, are just so important. Which really connects with one of the other questions that I had for you all, which is, if we're skipping or rushing past this stage of bonding, what are some of the dangers that we might run into if we're not bonding as a group? I think I just kind of named one there of that we don't understand why we're this group, but I would love to hear your thoughts about the dangers of not bonding as a group.
Communication is the biggest one. If you're not bonded and you're not comfortable communicating, it can cause sore spots further on. And one thing that I've been having actually as a conversation just about camp is also, what group is too big to bond with entirely, and how much time is needed to bond with certain sizes. And that's something I haven't quite decided, but it's something that I've actively thinking. And there are groups that are too big where I think rushing is almost just inevitable. And I don't love that, but it's like, what size is too big?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it has to we talk about this, but like we're really talking about many different kinds of ways that we're using this, right? So it could be a small group where the bonding is going to happen in a way that's very different than like a congregation, which is a community in and of itself that meets regularly, each week, but like different people, like different characters every time, right? And so you have to like make the bonding experience fit the group that you're working with. Or not to harp on the map, but I really do believe in the map. But the reason the map is, the bonding harbor, and then you've got in next month you're going to talk about the cliffs of exclusivity and the tepid bay, which is perfect because the cliffs of exclusivity and the tepid bay are actually forces to work for our community and against our community, and I'm sure you'll talk about that next month. But those are all entryways. They're all points where you could access, right, the map of to deeper joy. But we're not like encouraging you to like airdrop into the canyons of deeper sharing, right? Like you don't like take people who haven't experienced bonding and all of these other things and then just like drop them in and be like, "Hey, now talk about death and dying and like all of these things," right? Because that would scare people away, honestly, and it doesn't create the container that is really needed to hold those deep moments of community. You have to have a container to be safe and to feel like you are going to be held if you share a vulnerable thing, or if you do a hard thing together and fail maybe, or succeed, whatever. You have to know that you have that container. And so the design with the bonding harbor and all of the other points is to really create that container. If you don't, you risk having a community that doesn't know who they are and doesn't know what they're for, as I'm like, that's kind of what you were saying, Ember, and that can't agree on it. Like people think that they have a different idea of this is what this gathering is for. These are what these people are for. And if everybody's not on the same page, then well, you're not bonded. You're not bonded. You're not going to stick together.
I think you're really spot on in thinking about the map. So many of these stages are not one-time things. I think that's the problem with so many of these like linear stages of community building. I mean, even also with linear stages of life, like so many of these things are cycles. One of the things that came up in our opening up beach episode, the most recent episode, was talking about like membership and like membership processes. Like we need to be holding spaces where people can open up, where people can bond. Like these are regular things that need to be thought about, not just like, okay, we've all bonded as a group and like we've figured it out and now we're set for the next 50 years. Like, especially like in a congregational setting, but also like I think about like a youth group setting or an emerging adult setting where, every 4 years you're getting like a complete turnover in like a youth group or like an emerging adult group. You're getting a lot of turnover those every few years. These are things that will have to be regularly happening and regularly be thought about, like in your community. And like thinking about youth groups, thinking about emerging adult groups, I think one of the things we have to do is think about a whole church where we're really being called to build this community that works across generations, across different facets of our congregations, to be one bonded group together, a whole church, I suppose would be the best word for it. What kind of bonding experiences can we do to help young children, youth, emerging adults, adults, our elders in the communities, those, different names that group might use to identify themselves. How do we help these generations bond as one community? Like it's a difficult work. I don't think there's, if you have the magic answer, then I think you've just solved everything. But I think that there's still thoughts that are important to think about in this question.
Personally, the thing that I have set up at U-Bar-U and is the thing I'm proudest of is around COVID, we lost that year at camp, which would have been my senior year at camp. And I was like, no, can we do a young adult programming? And so what we did is we set up a young adult program that bridgers bridge into, so they can go to senior camp and then immediately attend the young adult camp. And honestly, it really bonded the whole like intergenerational community in a way that I absolutely did not fathom. Because I mean, the range is 18 to 30-year-olds. That's all of camp. you could have been a young person at camp and at the senior camp and be in the same camp now. And so that bonds a generation in a way that I didn't anticipate. And then also it has connected me to my peers' parents, because I'm at an age where I want jobs and I want advice and just thoughts from people who aren't my parents sometimes, but are an adult and an adult I trust. And I think that the biggest thing is fostering those points of transition, because those are the points that people want to take space from the community, find, just it's not connect across the board. And I think that if we foster those transition points, that it will foster the whole community.
What I hear you saying, Jocelyn, is like it's really important to foster across the generation connections, right? So that the 18-year-olds have people to look up to, the 30, can look up to the 30-year-olds as like they've gone through these life experiences, and together you can have this experience. And it goes both ways, right? The 30-year-olds also benefit from thinking about, oh, that's right, that's what it was like to be 20. That's what it's like to go through these things. And it gives us all a sense of camaraderie, community, to feel like we are impacting other people. We can tell a story, right? That maybe can help somebody else get through a hard time, or find the supports that they need. And like if we can offer those opportunities in our congregations, in our camps, in our communities, that will help with that bonding, because we will see each other as actual individual people, real people, right? Not like as this monolith, oh, the young adults are here. Oh, the elders are here. Because we all have so much to contribute to community. So I think you're right. I think like bonding, part of the bonding experience is making sure that everybody feels like they belong, and that they are, I use this word, integral to the community. Like we are all needed in the community. And the bonding experiences really set that up for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, and I think I'm so happy that you've named this, because I think a lot about mentorship. It's a big thing that I think about, and so it's sort of connected to this. But I think more important kind of naming here is, it's so easy in our culture to like, everything talks about like this generation versus that generation, boomers versus millennials. As a millennial, I know millennials are best, but but it's so important that if we truly are going to be building beloved community, if we're building a countercultural example of how we can have these healthier communities, that we're not just seeing that generations are antagonistic towards each other. And I know growing up in the church world that I did, like that was very much the thing, like, oh, the elders don't want the cool new worship, and like this is all this problem. It was very much like sold that like the young people need to fix all the problems that the old people ruined the church. And that's not what we want to be. That's not what we want to be selling. That's not the narrative that we want to be telling people, that we're fighting the different generations, and instead see the wisdom that we have in each generation. There's some of the most beautiful justice work that I've ever had the privilege to be part of is when I get to work with people who've been doing this for decades of their life, and I see the effort that they've put in and how meaningful it's been to them. Like, that's so beautiful to get to learn from our elders, and to get to learn from those who are younger than us as well. Like, this is cross-generational learning. It's such a beautiful thing. I love this naming of transition points, because that's looping us back to the mentorship, because this is an opportunity where an emerging adult can be mentoring a youth who's like getting ready to can talk about like, hey, what's college like, what's getting a job like, and how can I pass on useful information. Like, I wish I was talking as I graduated high school, that I was talking to people in their mid-20s, so they could have told me a little bit about what the job market was going to be like. There's so much useful information that we can be passing back and forth to each other across these generations, and like we can make some really beautiful connections and hold really beautiful space if we're allowing that bonding to happen. Yeah. Any other thoughts about our whole church approach to bonding? Anybody else got anything they want to add?
I wanna just give a little plug for, whole church, it doesn't mean that everybody is all together in one place, but it does mean that we're clear about who is welcome and we don't just say it, but we actually give evidence to who's welcome in a space. So, for instance, I like to say, here's an example, chairs. If you have a space where you want like people of all ages to be welcome, do you have chairs that actually meet all body types? Do you have chairs that are for small people? Do you have chairs that are for bigger people? Do you have chairs that don't have sides on them for people who need more space? Like, oh, do you have spaces where there aren't chairs for people who bring their own chair with them, right? So like that's a really great example of setting up the activities, like the bonding activities. If you don't have the right chairs for people to sit in or to participate, then you can't really do the bonding activities. And you're also giving a clear message of who actually hasn't been thought of in the planning of this activity. So I think whole church is also about like the setup. It's about the setup and letting people know who is who has been thought of in the planning.
It's really important that we think ahead in fostering these multi-generational spaces and fostering accessible spaces. Are we planning ahead? Some might even say preemptive radical inclusion, which I'm going to just name drop for anyone else to pick up if they'd like. But these bonding games and activities, or the bonding space in a congregation, everybody needs to feel that it's something that's accessible to them. I think back to young me with some social anxiety. I've come to realize I'm an extrovert now, but young me was, very socially anxious, but was very unnerved when things didn't feel super inclusive to me. That I was like, well, why would I be involved in this? This does not feel like a safe group. And I was very much reading that like this was in fact not for me. So how do we, besides like some of the things that Shannon was already naming there about, being prepared for our space so that, people of all bodies, abilities, temperaments can participate. How do we as leaders, facilitators, how do we adapt activities? How do we plan well? What are things that we can do to make sure that things are accessible?
You said it, preemptive radical inclusion, which is it's a CB Beal framework. And I highly recommend people check out CB's website to learn more about it. But it really says that we are planning for the people who could be here, right? And we're making decisions about the our space, about the activities that we're doing based on all of the people that could be there, right? And not just who actually is. But I think the thing is that what CB will tell you is that it doesn't end with the planning. It doesn't end with the preparation because we're always going to fall short. There's going to be a time when somebody says, "Hey, this doesn't work for me." And that's the key point. That's the point we have to pay attention to because that's where we have the choice of listening, of learning, and of adapting or of getting defensive or being and or saying, well, I tried, I did everything I could and I'm sorry I couldn't, I couldn't make everybody feel ex what was it included, right? And we have and I see us in the moment making, and I say us as in Unitarian Universalist communities and congregations, I see us sometimes making the latter choice, not because we don't want to provide these welcoming spaces for people, but because we just can't think of everything and we don't like to fail and we don't want to be seen as somebody who's not thinking about all of the possibilities. So we're not going to always do it right. It's just what do we do when we find out that we could do it better?
I think that's a great point. Just leaving space to ask is, how can I make this work better for you? If the initial setup didn't, and leaving space for not being defensive, I think that's huge. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, how can we step back from like that reactive, defensive, and instead just realize like, hey, things are not going to be perfect, and we can in fact change and adjust them. And that's one of the things that I love about the work that Jenica Davis Hockett has done around deeper joy, is making sure that these activities have been discussed with multiple thought partners to think about the accessibility of the activities that are included in deeper joy, because we want to make sure that they're accessible and inclusive. And if we get feedback that, hey, this one actually isn't, then it's something that we'll make adjustments on. These are the things that are being listened to, and that we have to start modeling ourselves. Like we have to be the ones to start modeling that. We're naming that, part of this is this ability to structure, to plan ahead, and be preemptively radically inclusive. But then so many of these bonding experiences are spontaneous. Jocelyn, I'm thinking back to, ending up all at the airport together. How do we balance between this structure and spontaneity so that it's, still safe and accessible, but also that there's space to have ridiculous fun and have things be weird and silly? How do we do well with that?
I was joking to you at the top of this call that we operate on UU standard time, which is usually about 15 minutes behind when we normally do things. And just going in with that flexibility you just have to operate with flexibility in group settings. If you're not, then it will be unenjoyable for yourself. It has been my experience, at least. And also being aware of everybody in regards to spontaneity. Certain spontaneous things could stress out certain people, and certain spontaneous things could really excite other people. And so it's finding that balance of how do we make everybody have fun.
Ooh, that balance. Yes, because anxiety is a real thing, especially in the beginning of like gathering and things. And so spontaneity, I love spontaneity. I love to go with the flow. And I know people who are like, but the schedule says that we're supposed to be doing this at this time, and this is, and we really have to keep all of that in mind. I am so easily distracted from the schedule. But I think also it's just about like as a facilitator, just like letting the magic happen, right? Just knowing that like you're gifting a group with an activity or a setting or whatever you're doing to set this up, and that the group is going to take it and they're going to do what they do with it, right? And it might not end up looking exactly the way you envisioned it, but look for the magic. Look for are people laughing and having fun? Are people feeling comfortable? Are people starting to want to share and to help and to pitch in with tasks and things like that? Then you're doing it right, right? And just allowing it to unfold.
This has been such a beautiful conversation. However, I'm gonna wrap us up with a final word from our guests. So if you could leave our listeners, they're approaching Bonding Harbor themselves in their ships, if you could leave them with some excitement for their own Bonding Harbor experiences, could you share a little bit about a particularly meaningful group that you personally are involved in and how it brings you some joy to your life?
I'm going to go back to camp. For me, it's at UBARU. It's a camp and retreat center in Texas, and we have a staff of about 5 consistent people. And over a year's time and spending nights and days together, you get really close. And there's very few jobs where you build a covenant almost monthly. And so I get to decide how I want to operate in this community with people that are important to me. And that has been really joyful for me.
I'm kind of a nerd and I love the Renaissance Fair. And I happen to live in Ohio, which has a really fantastic Renaissance Fair. And in the last year, my daughter and I have really gotten into the Renaissance Fair. And I know it seems I could do a whole episode on the Renaissance Fair and how I think that it's like the most amazingly, wonderfully queer and accepting and affirming kind of community. It can be. I'm not saying it always is, but it can be. And why I'm attracted to it. But yeah, dressing up in costume and getting to compliment people on their costumes and people getting to try out different ways of expressing themselves. Oh, is fantastic. I love that in community.
Guess we're gonna have to plan a future episode where we do it live from a Renaissance fair with Shannon. Here's my dreams for future seasons of Just
I'm
Breathe.
I'm so here for that. Let's do it.
So thank you both for being with us today. Reminder to our listeners that we are on all the major podcast streaming platforms as well as YouTube. Give us a like, a subscribe on there. You can follow us on Instagram at Just Breathe Pod. Remember the two U's in there, and that's breathe with the E at the end. And spread the word about your favorite Unitarian Universalist podcast. And if Unitarian Universalism is new to you, if you've made it all the way to the end of this podcast, if you want to learn more about Unitarian Universalism, head to www.uua.org. This was our fourth Just Breathe episode of the fifth season, and we are so excited to continue exploring whole church religious education and this community building map of deeper joy together with you this season. As we've already named, next episode, we're going to be exploring what it means to be in Tepid Bay or on or near the cliffs of exclusivity. We're excited to get to discuss those with you, and we will see you then.
Mystery, mystery, life is a real mystery.